To battle, packmates, and welcome back to another episode of Starfleet Command, Orion Pirates Postmod. I am Fleet Admiral America, the battleship Thunderfang. And unfortunately, we had a little bit of a problem when we were trying to record today. My Yeti mic didn't get picked up properly for some reason, and so it was resulting on, well, annoyances. Mainly the fact that none of my voice got recorded during the actual recording of the episode, so because I don't want to put up pretty much a half content, I figured that I would go back, watch through the game that we had just played, and do some post-commentary on it. So without further ado, that's exactly what we're going to do, and the main thing that we're going to try and focus on today is we're going to try and get the surround going on the planet of 213. We've been kind of working towards that in the last couple of episodes, but today is what we're going to really focus on, see if we can't complete that total round out. If we can pull it off, then we'll have isolated the planet from, I think it's 413, or it might be 313, the other planet that also has a station in the middle of orbit with it. If we complete that encirclement, then they cannot work with each other. That takes away from their economy, and it'll make it easier to actually do the planetary assaults in the long run, and also cut down the number of tiles we'll have to hunt down at the very end. So with that in mind, we went out to recapture a tile that got flipped the moment the mission started, or the moment the campaign started. I pretty much hit record, and then the tile flipped over, and you could see that at the very beginning of the episode. So we decided to go out there and try and take it before any more Empire defense could build up, either for neutral or to keep the Hydrants from taking it. We had just recently turned the tile. We had been on neutral, and because of that we decided that we could leave that for just a little while, since our influence was the last one to really push on it. And the first mission that came up here, as you can see, was an Enigma mission. So the Enigma mission, for those of you who don't know, and I get to kind of chat about more of these things because I'm not narrating exactly what steps I'm doing, the Enigma mission is there was a random sensor trace out in the middle of nowhere, and you were sent to investigate. And in the Enigma mission, this results in there's a random ship sitting there. It's completely disabled, it can't do anything, has no weapons, has no engine power, and just sits there. And after a certain number of turns, it will automatically blow up. Now, on board these ships, on occasion, there will be random supplies, dilithium crystals or medical supplies. If you capture it, it's worth between 50 and 90 prestige-ish, which can be a nice little bonus, especially early on if you pick up an Enigma mission. And our part in the game really doesn't matter. It's just not a whole heck of a lot. We are sitting on top of something like almost 5,000 prestige anyway. But it's always nice just to grab it just for completeness sake. But the one cool thing about the way that this mission works is the AI doesn't quite seem to know how it's supposed to operate. It seems to, for some reason, prioritize the ship that is there. It almost always goes for it, including, as you can see, our pseudo-frigates, which are just blasting away at the random Gorn heavy cruiser. And because of that, you can actually get a good salvo or two in on the enemy before they can reply to you. Like right there, all of that firepower completely ignored from me. That's a pretty decent amount of firepower. And he totally didn't send any of it my way. So that gives us an opportunity to sort of jump on the enemy, do a full alpha strike on top of him, see what kind of damage we can deal to him. And that's what we're going to do right here. And we managed to plow everything we get into him and deal 226 damage, plus an additional 2 points of damage from our pseudo-frigates. And just absolutely ripped into him. I'm actually really surprised he didn't take even, that he has as much power and system still online as he does. Now, granted, we did fire it all in one big chunk, which only rolls once on the critical table, which means it doesn't knock out a whole bunch of systems. It takes out power pretty bad, but still, that much damage into what was essentially a space control ship is pretty hilariously good. So we came through, made our big alpha strike, and immediately pulled away. And for the first time in what I've ever seen, the AI decided to stop prioritizing blowing up the random Gorn ship off there in the corner and sent its fighters my way, which put us in a little bit of an awkward situation. We didn't have our ESGs anymore. We're traveling so fast that we don't have any power into the ESG to allow it to destroy anything, and we're being chased down by fighter groups, 20 of them, which is quite a lot of fighters to have to deal with. So we were just blasting away every single weapon that could come online at any point, just firing it into these Killer Bees, and we were lucky that these were Killer B1s and not Killer B3s. Because if these were Killer B3s, we would have a much bigger problem on our hands than just losing a single shield, because they'd have Gatling phasers at that point, and that just rips things apart. Now, the really cool thing of what's going on in the background over there is that our pseudo-frigates are just ripping that carrier to shreds. I mean, look at how much damage it's currently taken. It's lost half of its weapon systems, which just goes to show that while pseudo-frigates may kind of suck for anti-fighter work and anti-anything else work, they do a really good job when they actually want to, knock somebody, when they want to just pounce on somebody who's already pretty heavily mauled. Now, at this point, I decided we're going to call them in. I didn't want to accidentally lose any, because at the end of the day, doesn't take him a whole heck of a lot of damage to actually kill the pseudo frigate. So called him back, especially this one over here that's coming up. Yeah, he just got shot at. He was not having a great day, but we'll get him back on board. We'll get him all repaired, and then we'll be able to go in to completely knock him out, which shouldn't take all that much time. It's just a function of us finally getting over there. Now, my first plan had been to go around to the right of this mine here, but the captain of whatever ship that is decided that he was going to try and use that as a defense, so we just ended up just going off to the left of it because that was the profile that he presented. We finally remembered to kick on our defensive systems at this point. We had been sitting through this whole battle without any ECM, no shield reinforcement. The Enigma mission can allow you to get away with making some kind of mistakes like that, although you probably don't want to endeavor to do that all too often. ECM has proven to be just so incredibly useful to us in this campaign so far. Just the ability to force the enemy to be so very inaccurate that they can't really put any significant amount of damage on you early on in a fight can be very powerful. Now, with that said, we have taken a lot of damage throughout the war, but for the most part, we haven't lost that many ships. At least not since we got into the larger dreadnoughts. I mean, yeah, we did lose the Scimitar, but that was a case of us trying to take on 3 X-type heavy cruisers. So at this point, it's just all over for him. The maximum speed he can generate is 8. He's trying to flee at this point. He's got some shield reinforcement facing towards us in the aft, but it's just not going to save him, and he probably knows it. So we just kick on the ESGs, and this, at this point, is the Indiana Jones boulder, just rolling on towards him. He can dump a mine all he wants, but that is not going to save him. So we just roll right into him and just shatter him. It's 120 damage dealt that you cannot shoot down, that you cannot block, that you cannot try and use electronic countermeasures against. The ESG is a great weapon system for that kind of thing. It doesn't work in Nebulas, which is really unfortunate, but hey. So we made a pretty decent amount of prestige. We grabbed the tile and immediately bounced back over to the original tile that we had been attacking. And it looks like they gained it back. I thought we had it neutral, but they gained it back, in which case we'll go fighting them over it for it once again. Try and take it back away. We don't want them to have it after all. We want this full surround to work this time. And today we were being escorted by an X-type fast heavy cruiser. It was the Blood Spiller. I'm not a huge fan of this ship. Not necessarily because, well, it's one of those X-type heavy cruisers that just doesn't bring anything to the table. It's very boring. When I think of most X-type ships, I think of heavy photon torpedoes. I think of mainly heavy photon torpedoes. But the Lyrans really don't get a whole heck of a lot when it comes to their X ships. They're really kind of underwhelming. It just adds in a whole bunch of disruptors and a decent-ish ESG armament, but it doesn't bring any of the cool X-type heavy weapon systems. So because of that, I'm not really thrilled with it, but it's always nice to have an X-type heavy cruiser on your payroll, because even if it doesn't have the amazing weapons, it still brings a decent amount of shields to the table. Now, this was something that I just could not get over throughout this entire mission, and I kept commenting on it throughout the whole thing. This dreadnought is possibly the most pathetic dreadnought that I've ever seen. It has 3 Hellbores and 2 fusion cannons, and we'll find out later it's got 4 or 8 fighters. It's basically nothing. This is gotta be some kind of early era dreadnought, because this is really pathetic. Yeah, it's got an X-type upgrade, but it has in total like 5 or 6 X-type phasers, which is nothing. 5 heavy weapons, 6 phasers in the X era. I'm surprised its shields were as thick as they were. And this heavy cruiser, I was like, okay, so maybe we're fighting something and this is bringing the maximum firepower. Nope. It's got 6 heavy weapons, which is more than that dreadnought, but it's only got 2 Hellbores. And to back that up, it's got 4 phasers. So it's like, where's all the firepower supposed to be? Yeah, it had 8 fighters on board. And the other one has 4. So this is just, I don't know what kind of power balance we ended up getting on this one. I was highly amused by it, though. Simply because we were in a fight where basically we could bulldoze anybody we felt like. They just didn't have any way of stopping us from dealing enough damage to crunch anything we wanted. And so he would launch his long-range Hellbore shot. It wasn't going to do anything to us. I don't think we're at... Oh yeah, we do have our defensive systems online. But even still, a single Hellbore from that range, it's not doing much. And at this point I decided I wasn't going to try messing around with the fighters. It was only 4 of them. They were only Killer B1s. I could probably take on this guy in one pass. He just didn't have a whole lot of systems to defend himself with. So I kicked on the ESG and decided to go after him. But he pulled away. And he starts pulling away fast, so I decided to start opening fire with the disruptors. The disruptors didn't get through, so I say, hey, okay, will open fire with the phasers. And the phasers start forcing him to reduce his speed. He's now slower than we are. And he pulls that angle in tight, which was a major mistake for him. And then we finish him off with a single phaser blast. It was a pretty good shot. So all told, it wasn't too hard to knock him out. That frees up the Blood Spiller pseudo-frigates to go off to help him, which, by the way, the Blood Spiller is in the middle of just spanking this dreadnought. HMS Fearless here is, well, not in a great position, and he's never going to be in a great position throughout this entire fight. I'm not sure who attacked this Orion Raider, but whoever did, that initial attack just took him completely out of the fight. I mean, maybe it's these fighters that are just constantly blasting on him, and if so, the Hydrogen Captain really made a major mistake because the fighters are not as dangerous as the Blood Spiller is. But, what can you say? Sometimes the AI makes really, really bad decisions. Although, just getting into this fight at all was probably a really bad decision. So at this point, we're cruising on, and we've got to cruise on slow. We're a battleship. We don't do anything quickly. There are some battleships that you can kind of pseudo-force to be rather quick, mainly by shutting off certain super heavy weapons. But for us, we've got 3 heavy weapon hardpoints, and they are such massive power hogs, we just don't have enough energy to drive at all. So we're actually not even supposed to be able to drive at 16 right now because we were still in the middle of charging most of our weapon systems. So we're going to cruise on in here and start using our disruptors, but our ESGs are still not charged. They just take so much energy, and, well, yeah, 120 damage is nice, and 120 damage that can't miss is great. It's not as cool as, say, a Mauler. Although it requires a little less finesse, because the ESG will still charge on if you're using reinforcements on your battery, but the battery does not charge unless you have excess power, which means no shield reinforcement for you. So at this point he starts turning away from us. He's still doing a speed of 15, which is pretty quick. So he's clearly some kind of either light dreadnought or fast hunting dreadnought designed to, I guess, chase down cruisers in the early era? Because he's got nothing else, but he's just getting ripped to shreds by the Blood Spiller. And the Blood Spiller isn't even all that good of a ship. I mean, the fast cruiser for the Lyrans just does not bring a whole heck of a lot of firepower to the table. I mean, yeah, he's about to hit him with the ESGs, but who cares? It's such a weak ESG shot. He didn't allow it to fully charge. And now we're finally getting into a position where we might be able to help out, but he's already lost all of his systems. His power is such a bad shape, he's down to 2. He gets taken out by a single shot from a pseudo-frigate, an interceptor pseudo-frigate at that. And so at this point we start focusing on the OBR, and the OBR has nothing. Like, he's been completely crippled already. He's gotten up to a speed of 2.2, but at this point he's trying to clear the field, if the AI knew how to clear the field. And we're not even going to make it up to him. Like, we're going to slowly plot our way, and we're at our maximum speed at this point, but we're not going to make it there in time. He's going to get destroyed by long-range fire from the other ships, which is kind of a shame. Because we wanted to be the ones to help out, but we end up knocking out his shield, and then just long-range blinking fire is what does it before we can actually get within range. We almost plow through this mine before they do it, I think. Yeah, right there. The final salvo from the Blood Spiller just rips them apart. So we took out 1/3 of that whole group, and the Blood Spiller took out both of them. I'm a little surprised that mine didn't blow up. I guess something about its logic shut off when the mission got complete. But I've rammed into mines before after mission complete. Not quite sure on that one. But hey, it is what it is. So 292 prestige for the Road, and we immediately made it neutral, so we jumped right back on it. Because we wanted to take this tile. If we could take this tile, it'd put us in a very powerful position. We'd have the planet completely surrounded, and an asteroid base assault came up. Which, is not great. Lyrans do not asteroid base assault very well. They just don't base assault very well. The problem is they don't have any long-range weaponry on their ships. Like, none of it. Disruptors don't count. Disruptors are light skirmishing weapons. They're not siege weapons. They don't deal a lot of damage. And so, if they want to take on a starbase, if they want to take on a star dock, if they want to take on an asteroid starbase or a planet, they've got to get stupidly close to these things. Which is very, very dangerous. You don't want to get close to, well, anything that you're fighting, because that means that they can fight back with the most powerful weapons they have at their disposal, which in this case is going to be 4 Phaser 4s and 4 Phaser 3s. And the Phaser 4 just gets more and more powerful the closer you get, so you have to get on top of them to deal any damage at all, or you just sit at maximum range plinking away with disruptors for 30 minutes. We've done that before, but it ain't fun. So I decided in my plan we were going to run up on top of this heavy cruiser, try and burst him down as soon as we possibly could, and then run over to the asteroid base, send over Marines to try and knock out his Phaser 4 mount, and burst him down as fast as we could. I figured it had a halfway decent shot of being able to take out that Phaser 4. After all, we have a lot of transporters. Now, he has 20 Marines on board, but we've got like 50, 60 Marines on board our ship, plus a ton of transporters. It's like 6 or 7. It's more than 6. It's like 7 or 8. So with so many transporters that we have at our disposal, I figure I can send over enough hit-and-run teams that I can break something. I sorely underestimated just how powerful a hit-and-run team could be in the face of 20 Marines on defense. So at this point, we've gone up to our maximum speed of like 22 at this. We have prioritized electronic countermeasures, and we're zipping along pretty much as fast as she'll go with some kind of defense. We may go a little bit faster, tap into the engine completely to sap that last 8.5 points of power into the engine itself, but it just takes us a while to get anywhere. I mean, we're a big, heavy battleship. We can't start at the beginning of a match. We have to wait an entire turn to charge up so that our disruptors and our phaser capacitor is fully charged to give us any energy at all. And again, it all comes down to those ESGs. They are such power hogs. They will slow you down really, really badly. Now, the Mendacity here is actually a pretty fun and interesting ship. Unfortunately, it's about, 30 or so years out of date. The thing that it's got going for it is it's got 4 C-Rack missile launchers and a single B. The C-Racks will spit out 2 missiles every single turn, so he's rocking 8 missiles per turn from those C-Racks alone, so 9 in total. And the B-Rack's an extended magazine, which gives them additional missiles. Unfortunately, we're in an era where basically you're never going to get that through any sort of point defense grid. I mean, maybe a Lyran point defense grid, because really we have some of the worst point defense in the game, despite the fact that the Lyrans fight the Marak, which is the most missile-heavy race in the game. But as you can see, he's got enough tractors to handle almost all of that, and he's a pirate raider. Can you imagine him trying to fight like standard Klingon frigates that are at this type of era already packing 2, 3, and 4 point defense systems? It's outmoded, and it's really not worth anything. So we just walk in there and annihilate him in one pass through. He didn't have the structural support required to be able to take on a battleship. Then again, he never really thought he did. And he really didn't have enough missiles to punch through. 9 missiles in total, plus another 6 from a scatter pack if he could control them all. 15 missiles is a lot, but again, I don't think it could control all that many missiles. So again, we have to slow way down, taking a look, and we maximize the speed of time at this point as we stare down this asteroid base from long range. And I get the notion of, let's launch all the pseudo-frigates. Maybe I can confuse him. Because the last time we went up in a planetary assault, what we ended up doing was there were pseudo-frigates ahead of us that the planet decided to focus all of its firepower on. That gave us a brief window of opportunity to attack the planet and stop them from being able to blow us up. So I figure, hey, maybe I can do this with my own pseudo-frigates. It might cost me 220 to 440 prestige if nothing works properly, but maybe I'll have a shot at it. And this is about the point where I think, maybe I'll use my Marines to try and destroy his 2 hardpoints. He's got a couple more than that, because he does also have, he also has a couple of support systems. But if I can nail him with my Marines, I've got 60 to start with, maybe I can do something here. It is a bit of a forlorn hope, but hey, I've never really tried to just mass boarding party something to death. Yeah, we've done it for G-type phasers before on other ships, but I've never really tried to knock out an installation that was so heavily dependent on a single hardpoint. And so we start cruising in, and at this point I'm really concerned. Why weren't they firing their phaser 4s until they finally do? This gives us a very brief window of opportunity to try and jump on top of them, because as you can see, that phaser 4 is slowly recharging. And we get within range and send over the Marines, and that's 7 Marine teams. Nothing happened. I was a little bit concerned. So the forward shields came back on time, just in time, and we start turning away to be able to take whatever Phaser 4 retaliation he got. He hit us with all of his Phaser 3s, which wasn't pleasant, but still, we were alive after the first salvo. And his initial shot doesn't actually even take out my shields, which I was really surprised at. I was expecting the shields to just collapse on him, but it didn't happen. And we end up just continually circling around this guy. And now that we're in close, we've sent over 14 Marine teams at this point. We're trying to get a little bit of things going on here. And the thing just blows up to our pseudo-frigates. So it worked out a heck of a lot better than I had been planning. All told, we took pretty limited amounts of damage. We're in a relatively good shape. We've got all 4 pseudo-frigates still. And it was only 124 prestige, but hey, that's not terrible. All things considered, I mean, it was a fairly easy fight. But that allowed us to finally take the tile. And so now we have 213 completely surrounded, totally wrapped up in our grip. It is going to be a little bit difficult to hold all of that because right now the planet 213 and 3 or 413 will try and exude its influence as much as it can to break that blockade. But for now, we have 213 in a really good position. 36 Empire defense is all it's got left. And if we can break through that, then we've really got something going. Anyway, I'm going to let the video play out to the end here. I've been back. If you like what you've been seeing, hit that like button and subscribe. If you want to see a notification every time I post one of these videos, press that little bell icon to become an. I will see you all in the next episode.